What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast, your home for all things Amazon advertising. Tips, tricks, strategies to make your Amazon advertising easier and more profitable. Today, I'm joined by my dear friend, the incredibly talented Destiny Washone from Better AMS. Destiny, welcome back to the show. You're currently buffering hard. Okay, now you're back. Yes, you're back now.
I was
What's
like,
up?
you completely paused for a second, but I think we're good to go now. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I was in the middle of singing your praises. Talented leader of Better AMS. Welcome back to the show.
Excited to be here, as always. One of my favorite podcasts, as you know.
Come on. You've recently launched your own podcast.
I did.
It's great.
Better Advertising with Better AMS. We're trying to take a little bit of a different direction with it right now and just bring on a lot of the people we respect on the brand side of the space and just hear what made their brand successful. Because it's quite a bit different per brand, in all honesty.
For sure. Totally different experience. That's good. That's really cool.
It's been fun.
I've checked it out. People should check it out.
Aw, thank you so much.
People know how to find it. Your link is in the show notes.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I'm also super pumped because I think we're going to the same conference in New York, Amazon Unboxed, in October, which is great because we actually haven't met in person yet.
We have not. So we'll have to take a picture so everyone knows how tall we are.
Whoa.
Relative to each other. That's an important topic.
What do you think my height is?
6'3".
Whoa. I am 6'1".
Oh, it's close.
Although I haven't measured myself. Like, I don't think you change very much, but I feel like I might actually be 6 foot, but I've been lying my whole life telling people I'm 6'1". I gotta get the extra inch. Gotta get right over the 6 foot mark.
This is the news the people are waiting on. So we will follow up with that report after Unboxed.
Yes, we're live from Unboxed. We've got the tape measure, and Michael is in fact 5'11". Anyway, we've got some cool stuff to talk about today.
Yeah.
One thing, it's a very interesting report from Amazon. I think it's something to be aware of, and it's like pretty light. It's just like a very simple thing. Drop your head around. This episode isn't gonna, be too mentally taxing. It's just like a really simple thing, and that is click validation, click fraud on Amazon. Invalid clicks, bot clicks. What are all these things? Doesn't have any of your clients ever mentioned to you like, hey, what's stopping my competitors from clicking on my ads? Have you ever been asked that question?
100%. Without going into the weeds on the philosophy behind this. Yeah, a ton of people tend to think that when their conversion rate's really low on some of their top keywords, it's a lot easier to blame your competitors or click farms or Chinese sellers. That comes up all the time. So this is something that I would say is not new in this space. I think it's really, really easy to assume that there is some form of fraud going on due to Amazon's history.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's a pay per click platform. So it's easy to think like, oh, like what's stopping my competitor from searching and clicking and then not buying?
Click karma. Click karma is a thing.
Click karma.
Yeah.
I've never heard this phrase.
As a brand manager, have you ever scrolled your top keywords and been like accidentally clicked on a sponsored ad? Because it's gonna come back and you're gonna lose that ACoS somewhere. Click karma. I try not to click on sponsored ads because I don't want other people to click on mine unless they're buying.
Yeah, it's a little stressful. It's stressful to me when I search on Amazon for like something for myself to buy. And I'm just like, wait, should I click on this or not?
I know if I click on it, it probably improves their performance, but they're paying for that click. Who am I trying to? Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, since we're talking about this new report, traffic validation and whatnot, it's actually pretty interesting because many moons ago when I was doing Google ads, they didn't have like this conversion aspect to their like quality score ad rank algorithm. So like if you were to search and click on an ad, like Google doesn't look at like conversion rate metrics because that's not how they're assessing the performance. They only do pure click-through rate. So it was always like, well, if a competitor is clicking on my ad on Google Ads, they're actually way reducing my CPC. Because like my quality score will go up. I'll get a quality score discount because I'm telling Google that like people love clicking on this ad. My quality score will go up, my CPC will go down. So it was actually like, hey, if competitors want to click on my ads and like, you know, make me spend $100, I'm going to actually save that through quality score. On Amazon, I think it's a little bit more intimidating because if you get a lot of clicks and no orders, that's actually like probably a negative signal being sent to Amazon. So this is a real, it's a concern, right? Like there's like more bots on the internet than there are humans. So the idea of like people creating bots to click on your ads is a scary thought. So I think Amazon is addressing this with a new report, and that report is the Gross and Invalid Click Metrics Report. So yeah, this is a little bit of news, something to be aware of. It's for sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display. Amazon says it provides transparency into the nature of the traffic on their campaigns. So IVT, invalid traffic. So let's walk through what this report looks like. Do you have a copy of the report on your end? We've got start date, end date, like anything else. We've got campaign name. And then we have these 4 metrics for impressions and clicks. We've got gross impressions, invalid impressions, and invalid impression rate. So quick observations here. Gross, I'm looking at a sample campaign. Gross impressions, let me add the comma so I know what number this is. But gross impressions, 1 million. Impressions, 640,000. Invalid impressions, 431,000 impressions. So like when you have 431 plus 641, you get 1 million impressions. So we've got gross impressions, invalid impressions, and invalid impression rate. So Amazon's saying that for this campaign, 40% of impressions were actually invalid. What comes to mind when you like see this ratio? And this is sort of down the line. I'm seeing campaigns with like 40%, 80% invalid, 70, 30. So like the number is not small for invalid impression rate.
I would say that there's 2 things that come to mind. One, it means Amazon's doing its job. It means that Amazon is tracking and making sure to prevent unnecessary spend from being added to your campaigns. I think that's like first and foremost. And I think that's actually the reason Amazon's releasing this report. I have a feeling this report is going to be misconstrued and people are actually going to use it against Amazon. And we're going to see things in the space like, look how terrible, 45% of my impressions are fraud. Amazon's not doing its job. It's letting invalid traffic on the page. And how do we know that there's not more? Like that typically tends to be the response. Very scarcity mindset. But I think it says Amazon's doing its job. It's segmenting. Everything looks a lot cleaner now that we kind of know these numbers. But the secondary thing, and I'll kind of like tee this up for you because you gave me a lot of insights around this topic, is that there is so much invalid traffic on the internet and that there's so many different bots and so many different things that are scraping Amazon that are causing more invalid impressions. It's not like what I'm going to hate to see is the moment this is going to be released, people are going to be screenshotting and saying 40% of my traffic is coming from a Chinese competitor attacking my listing. And that's just not realistic. I think it's more than likely the tools you're using and, you know, all of these external providers that are scraping Amazon that are causing fake gross impressions. But I would love to hear your insights.
Yeah, right. I would imagine most, like a lot of the bot traffic on Amazon, like these invalid impressions, are due to like all the tools that we're all using that are like going to Amazon and like scraping search results and then displaying those back to us. Like every tool that does a reverse ASIN lookup, just imagine the amount of work that goes into doing that. Like you have your product, you type in an ASIN, just one ASIN, and then it has to go and like find what keywords it thinks are relevant based off that page itself. So it has to scan the page and then it needs to go make searches for all of those things. It needs to like find out if it's indexed for those terms. So there might be like thousands and thousands of search terms that it's indexing or like checking the index status on like page 1, page 2, page 3, like so on and so forth. So the tools that we all use and love that like give us this like view of the industry is like where a lot of these bots come from. So like most traffic on the internet is bot stuff. What's up?
Question. So you're saying that the majority of the tools we use aren't pulling first-party data?
Right. You know, I think like brand analytics and like brand metrics and like all of this stuff and like product opportunity explorer, which we
Search
covered
query.
Yeah, for sure. Search query performance dashboard. All of those things are relatively new. So like,
Yep.
There's like a 99% chance that if you're looking at any tool, giving you search volume estimates, giving you ranking estimates, giving you reverse ASIN data, all of those things are going to be basically like scraped, meaning like a bot is created. It goes and scans Amazon and it's like reading it just like a human would, basically saying like, hey, is this ranked over here? Let me go report that. So that's relatively easy to detect. Like Amazon is like a huge tech company. They know the difference between a human searching and a bot searching.
Yep.
And that's why the invalid impression rate is so high. So like this seems pretty right. Like most traffic on the internet is a bot. I'm Googling this right now. Percentage of traffic on internet that is a bot.
It's no comment.
42%, according to lightreading.com. So 42%. And guess what? We just said that this campaign's invalid impression rate was 40%. And I'm like looking down the line here. It seems to be about 40%. Sometimes it dips to 27% or dips up to 90. Well, that was only 10 impressions. But yeah, it looks like a pretty consistent 40%. So yeah, they're basically just telling you, hey, we've already identified that 40% of bot traffic and we filtered it out for you.
Yeah.
So that's the invalid impression rate. We also have metrics on clicks, which same thing. How many total clicks, gross clicks, and then how many clicks, invalid clicks, and invalid click rate. This is a lot lower for sure. So that same campaign that have 40% invalid impression rate only has 8% invalid clicks. But my first take on that is like, of course it does, because like a lot of these scrapers don't actually need to click on the product. You actually don't need to click on it.
Yeah.
So again, Amazon's recognizing this and they're telling you like, hey, we've already filtered it out. That's basically this report. It's just Amazon's way of saying like, hey, in case you've been wondering, we've already been identifying this stuff and we've already been filtering it out for you. And now we're going to give you some insight on it. This report is identical to a report that Google Ads gives and has given for like a decade, which is like, hey, we already know that invalid clicks exist. We've already filtered it out, giving you the discount. Google actually tells you like, they actually like go and discount you because like they'll charge you for the click right away, but then they'll go back and they'll actually tell you like, hey, we're giving you this much money back, which is pretty interesting. That might also be cool to see here too. Amazon isn't 100% clear if you just don't get charged for this right away or if they're like giving you some kind of small discount. But yeah, that's how there's a lot of, so if you've ever used a ranking tool or reverse ASIN lookup tool, that's a bot scouring Amazon, giving you intel. So yeah, so that is the invalid click report. I do have one wish. So if you go to like Google, I was like searching before the show, Google Ads, Google has a whole page, Google Ad Traffic Quality, and they basically explain where all invalid clicks come from. And it's actually pretty cool, like invalid user activity. So like they know when there's abnormal behavior, like if a competitor is searching your thing, like clicking on it 10 times, that's very abnormal. Like most people don't do that. They automatically flag those. Accidental clicks, let's say somebody clicks 2 times in a second. Accidentally, they filter that out. Ad hiding is another thing they say. So ad hiding is when ads are placed in ways that make them impossible to see under normal circumstances. Some examples are ads tucked under iframes, hidden behind content, hidden behind other ads, invisible HTML containers, or ads that are displayed but too small to be seen, aka pixel stuffing. So this refers to display ads,
I was gonna say.
botnets, clickjacking, falsely reported inventory. That's where like a display site says they have placement for an ad, but they actually don't. So Google goes into a lot more detail than Amazon has for why this stuff exists, but it's pretty cool. I have one more wish for Amazon. Google actually lets you block IP addresses from seeing your ads. And you can actually go in and like see like, oh, like I want to block this IP address, or you enter your own IP address and say, I don't want this IP address to trigger my ads, which is sick. And you can also block entire ranges of IP addresses. And this is, I'm really going off the deep end here with the nerd talk, but like IP addresses are like phone numbers or zip codes. So you can like say like, you know, here in Austin, the area code is 512. So I could like theoretically like block every IP that has like that kind of like area code to it using a wildcard. Anyway, I'll stop geeking out on IP blocking, but I'd love to see it in Amazon too.
In general, I would not be surprised. Well, I feel like there's two directions Amazon can go with search. They can take a, you know, approach, I would say probably more similar to Facebook and more AI, and preventing people from making more granular customized adjustments to their ads. Or they can go in the exact opposite direction and giving people more control. So, you know, even just geo-targeting, things like that can be really, really powerful. Now, it is a pay-per-click model. I will always defend a pay-per-click model when people are like, oh, you know, day partying, or if I'm selling snow, like I will get that a lot. If I'm selling snow shovels, I don't want to serve California with an ad. I'm like, well, they're probably not clicking on your ad in California unless they actually need a snow shovel. Yeah. So that makes it a lot more difficult, I guess. But I think that there is a lot of opportunity to open up even more control on the search side and to give us some of those variables with IP and, you know, just having more fun. We get it on the display side. Big time. Will we get it on the search side? I don't know.
Yeah, like being able to differentiate, like imagine you're selling like a shopping cart that people in New York take to the supermarket that wouldn't be relevant for somebody who lives in the suburbs to do it. Yeah. Geo-targeting will be so valuable, right? Like I want to bid more over there. So fingers crossed. I love, you know, Google Ads has had way longer to mature, and like they have great geo-targeting. They have like negative targets. So like you can go in and say, I don't want to target this state, country, city, state, you know, zip code. So yeah, hopefully that happens too. But that's the invalid click report. So I guess final question on it is final thoughts on this report. You know, how will you interact with this report, do you think?
In my opinion, I don't think there's a lot of action items. I could see smaller sellers going in and pausing campaigns. That's a little bit of a fear because they give it on the campaign level. So I could see someone being like, oh, 60% of my traffic for this campaign is fraudulent. Pause it. But at the end of the day, like they're Amazon's already doing the work for you. They're just wanting to show you that they're doing the work. I think that is the sole purpose of this report is for Amazon to be like, see? We are preventing click fraud, whether or not you believe it. It's here. I would not recommend taking any actionable steps at this point in time.
Agree. Yeah, I wouldn't use this as a thing to be like, let me pause this campaign. It's they're definitely just saying like, hey, we're on top of it. You can sleep easy on it. Yeah. So that's the invalid click report. You know, when new stuff comes out, we like to talk about it. And this was the new thing that came out this week. We just saw it in an account for the first time this week. Shout out to Clement from the team for pointing this out. He was the first one to see it on our squad. You also had another interesting topic that you wanted to touch on. What was that topic?
Yeah, I actually think it's kind of a good segue here. So as we know, Amazon comes up with like millions of new things, and you really, it's not easy to keep up with all of it. And I think back to when you and I started. There's a whole different environment, whole different game. And I cannot imagine starting now. How do you know what to focus on? There's so many shiny objects, so many different things. So like the thing I was curious to hear more from you is just how you got started, how you learned, and like when you hit that inflection point of like, hey, I know my stuff. Now I can focus on all the new shiny objects, and just a general question. I've been curious.
Yeah, big time. You know, I gave a presentation somewhere one time, and I started out the presentation by sharing a quote. What was the quote? it was like some motivational quote. And this quote was attributed to like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Taylor Swift. And the reason I like brought that up in the beginning, it's like, it's very easy for like, it's very hard to find out the fundamentals of something. It's like very hard to like grasp this, like the best way to do something. The segue from that quote to what I was getting at is lost on me now. So cut that.
Fundamentals.
Yeah. So it was something about like, it's hard to find like the true source of whatever's going to work for you right now. And I feel like when I first started in digital marketing, I was doing a lot of like, I was looking for hacks. I was like looking for like the shortcut. I was looking for like, please just tell me one thing to do to like make my life easier. This was like a long time ago and I was doing like, building landing pages and like running PPC ads on Google and Facebook. And I was like looking for like the quick hack, like what's the one hack to like transform my Facebook ads, or what's the one hack to like transform Google ads or something like that. Or like, what's the one little hack that I can put on a landing page that will like boost its conversion rate a bajillion %. And I was doing that without fundamentals. I was doing that without like, well, what are the components of a good landing page? Or like, what are the components of a good pay-per-click campaign? Or like, what are the components of a good audience-based campaign? And once I started to sort of like map those things out in a really like simple, clear way, like, okay, those are the components of a landing page. And then like, oh, now I can see where like the little hack fits in. So for me, it was like strategy techniques. So like, what is the overarching strategy behind something, as opposed to just give me all the techniques? Because like techniques without context, it's like trying to float a ship that like only has like bits and pieces of it, as opposed to like the hull of the thing.
I think it's pretty interesting, seeing the space evolve. The top 10% of us agencies that are, putting out a lot of content, of course, Joe Shellerud, we put out a lot of content. We're all posting the same content with kind of our own style and our own twist. Like Joe's really, really analytical. You post a great content and bridging that gap between like how to make something really applicable. I typically kind of focus on the fundamentals. All three of us though, we're doing the same thing. And it's funny because like in order to scale an agency, you have to be good at what you're doing, Amazon advertising, but you also have to be a marketer. So I think it's so easy to be caught up in like all the shiny objects. You post this content, you're going to get a ton of views and a ton of clicks. But at the end of the day, it's bid management, budget distribution, and campaign setup. Like those are the three core focuses, but no one's going to work with our agency because we're good at those three things. That's not what people want to hear. They want to hear all the new fun stuff, even though it like only makes up 5 to 10%. So it's always interesting how we balance both. We're going to be reporting on the new stuff that people need to hear, but as an agency, we're built on those three fundamentals. And it takes a long time to get those fundamentals down. I mean, within 2 years of starting Amazon advertising, I was managing for Playtex and Playtex Baby, which is at the time was the #1 selling product in the baby category. So I think I had like $10 million worth of spend. And I think back to then and I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like it just takes so many different brands, so many different categories, products, launches, life cycles to really start understanding Amazon ads.
Yeah. I think I'll go into the past in a second, but I think one thing that just happened to me this week, I was coaching someone on PPC and their campaign structure was a mess. Way too many products, different products in the same ad group, too many ad groups per campaign, like budget limited, mixing match types, mixing strategies inside a single campaign, like really messy, right? And he's like, he tried to fix it by like searching for like a campaign structure download, and like just somebody please tell me what a good campaign structure is. Yeah. And he found a campaign structure that like only works for some situations. And in this particular case, it was a clothing, which I think is one of the hardest campaign structures to nail down. So it was a clothing company trying to follow campaign structure for like a private label company that has like 5 ASINs, and this
Yep.
person has, 12 ASINs, 12 SKUs per ASIN. Like it's, different sizes, different color variations, all competing for the same keyword.
Yep.
And I spent the first like 3 weeks just talking about campaign structure fundamentals. Like why is campaign structure important? Well, you don't want different things sharing the same budget. You don't want different things sharing that are going to perform differently, sharing the same keywords, or same things sharing the same
Yep.
placement bid settings. Like all of those fundamentals, like we spent a lot of time on that. And then once we did that, it's like, oh, like when you build a campaign structure where all the fundamentals are met, like that's my campaign structure.
Yep.
And it's going to be different for me than if I, sell 5 products that never compete for the same keywords. So like spending time on those fundamentals, I think is why people have like strong understandings of PPC as
Yep.
opposed to like just looking for like, and it's tough. Like it's super tough to like be able to discern that, which is why I think my best recommendation for people to get good at PPC is to go to adbadger.com/podcast, start at episode 1, and 200 episodes later, you will be a pro.
Yeah.
Cause like it's impossible to, that's like 200 episodes in, we're still talking about new stuff.
Yep.
It's really tricky.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process. So I think like, 10 years ago or so, I was super lucky. I was doing Google Ads and I had a client that was like, hey, I want to sell on Amazon too. So like, I mean, Amazon was still pretty big 10 years ago, but like it wasn't like as hot as it was now. And I just got that early exposure and I was able to like compare and contrast like, oh, like Google Ads does this, Facebook Ads does that, Amazon's different in this way. And like building that mental model of like how Amazon behaves, how different ad channels are similar and different, and like building up definitions of like, oh, dynamic bidding, up and down only, top product placement. Like top of search product placement is very identical to Google Ads has like you can bid differently on mobile, desktop, tablet. I was like, oh, okay, like I already had a framework to work with that. So like I don't think you need to like start on one channel and go to the other channel, but like building up those frameworks so that like, oh, sponsored brands also has placement settings. Oh, okay, like how is it different than sponsored product placement settings? How's it similar? How can I use this? All of those things. The fundamentals. It's all about fundies.
All about fundies. Even for us.
Yeah.
Even every agency. Like I'm probably more concerned with like agencies that are strictly posting like the buzzwordy things in order to like gain traction, because like you have to have both. It's just that content's not fun. Like it's not fun for Michael and I to talk about tacos on every single episode we've done in the last year.
Yeah.
But we hit on that stuff because that's what matters the most. I would say a little bit of bold statement, but I would say there's not a single rollout in the last 12 months that is game changing to your advertising performance. When I mean game changing, I mean like, hey, this ad rollout is going to completely change your performance. Like at the end of the day, what matters the most is still sponsor products, bid management. Like those two things are what's going to drive the 80-20. And if you're a well-established brand, all the new things that Michael and I are talking about are definitely going to make up 20 or 30% more market share. They can improve your efficiencies and your performance. And once you're spending millions of dollars, that stuff matters. But the fundamentals still have not changed, regardless of platform, regardless of ad type. And I think that's really key to kind of remember as you are getting immersed in content. I mean, we live in the digital era where education is everywhere. You can Google, you can go to TikTok, you can learn Amazon ads on TikTok. So it's like,
Are you on TikTok yet?
I am not as a
TikToker. Is your professional world on? I haven't transport. I have a TikTok account personally. Don't try to find it.
Yes.
But I have a TikTok account personally. I haven't created one for like.
I've gotten the feedback that I should.
Yeah.
But
I think I'd have so much fun with it.
I just don't have enough hours in the day at this point for content creation. Like I
Yeah.
need someone to follow me around and just
I know. We
all
need to
my
get on
outtakes.
Yes.
I need that Gary Vee status. I need a
Yes.
content team in my house.
Correct. Yes, that's right. But yes, content is everywhere. And I feel like my hope and wish, and I try to do it a lot on this show, is like every new thing that comes in, you need some kind of internal processing system to put that somewhere. So like everything's going to either help you get more impressions or more clicks, or help you boost conversion rate, or help with structure, or help with so like you always want to put it in a framework of like, what does this metric help with? Like, where does it go? And if you can develop that internal categorization system, that has been super helpful for me to, decipher quickly like what new things mean.
Yeah.
And like how to integrate them. So yeah, just putting in the reps, like managing a lot of campaigns and like really trying to think about them. Like, why is this doing this? Like pulling on the lever, seeing what happens.
A great book that I really resonated with was Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different opinions on the space, but the core of it was like anyone who's an expert at anything is not born an inherent genius. It all came down to their reps, and maybe they had an unfair advantage as a child that allowed them to get more reps in than everyone else in the space. And I think that is truly what it comes down to. Like, I think about the amount of podcasts I've been on, the amount of webinars I've been on, and like how I was in the beginning. And then, after 10,000 reps is kind of the number that he states, we really start becoming good at something. But it's true. And I think it's the exact same with Amazon advertising. Like, I think about when I managed for a singular brand, I would really get caught up in like click-through rate. I would get caught up in these really tiny details because for that specific brand, it mattered. But then as I expanded out across like multiple categories, like I started realizing those fundamentals that, this is really all that matters across the board, and that everything else is kind of just a variable metric I can't control. But reps
seeing a lot
anything.
Seeing a lot of different accounts, seeing the way that a lot of different accounts are different and get different results. And like, that's pretty massive too.
Yeah.
Like just seeing, okay, this is a clothing company that behaves this way when I do things. This is a supplement company that behaves another way. This is, a $20, physical product. This is CPG. This is like all of these kinds of different situations, seeing how different products react, getting a sense of like the industry. Like I can tell you about how cell phone cases behave. It's like pretty scary. I can tell you how like protein powders behave. It's pretty wild. It's getting a good sense of all that. I can tell you the difference between like, I don't know, a hair blow dryer that sells for $20 or $10 or $50 or $70. Like, it's wild, the frameworks that you can build. It's all about frameworks, like putting things into a framework so that you understand. So like you can just guess, you get really good at having a sixth sense of like assuming what's going to be the biggest issue in an account, assuming what's going to be the easiest win in an account. It's pretty, that's where like the magic starts to happen. Like having a framework to process new information. Yeah. That's huge.
This is great.
It is great.
I like this style of conversation a lot, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Authentic, real.
Authentic and real.
The little birds in your background really add to
you can hear some birds
right now. It's really nice. It makes me feel like it's spring.
It's September 30th in Austin. It'll be.
It is here as well.
It is. It'll be about 90 something degrees today. Still hot. Still got the birds chirping. It's beautiful. I'm looking at a beautiful oak tree. But yes, Destiny. So we've covered the invalid click report. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Nice maturity of the system that they're actually reporting this. They've been doing it for a while. It's cool that it's actually reporting it now. Talking a little about our learning styles. For you right now, I have one more question. How has your learning style changed over time from when you first started to now? Has it changed?
A question I get pretty frequently on my podcast is like, who do you learn from when it comes to Amazon advertising? And I'm always like, I don't myself still like, I've been pretty adamant that I don't want to be fully out of accounts at any point in time. I am of the opinion e-commerce changes way, way too quick. This definitely holds me back in terms of my ability to be a better entrepreneur because I'm still, in the business, on the business. But something can be said for hopping into Advertising Console at least once or twice a week and just looking at all the new things, looking at the different ways to visualize data. I learn a lot more from conversations like this where we can go back and forth. We can talk about things like the search query report. Here's how we've used this data. Here's how we've used this data. And I've really tried to expand past Amazon ads. Like, I just manage so much in Spend. I feel like I know 90% of ads, 5% is yet to come. And then there's 5% of how you use Amazon ads to relate to the rest of your business, which is where I'm trying to invest more into learning. As a private label brand whose cash flow is tied up in inventory, how should we be adjusting our advertising? As, search changes and is more saturated. Crazy data that I presented on with PackView. 67% of click share goes to the top 3 placements on the page, which are typically sponsored product ads. So how do you take data like that and you manipulate your overall strategy? How does that relate to your organic presence? That's a lot of where my time's gone lately, is just adjusting strategy to holistic business goals.
Beautiful. Yeah. For sure. Spending a lot of time thinking about the framework of like, hey, this is how I use new information to change my strategy. Yeah. That's the way to be.
Yes.
Destiny from Better
Michael?
AMS. Yes. It's always a pleasure. Excited to hang in New York, and Destiny from Better AMS. Check her out. She just launched a podcast of her own. And another thing that helps, abundance mindset.
Yes.
Helping people out, pumping your friends up makes you better at PPC, because then I can ask you questions. Hey, what are you doing with this report? What about that? Have you ever experienced this? It's great.
Could not agree more.
For sure. Destiny, have a good one. Hope to see you back here. Everyone else, I'll see you next week here on the PPC Den podcast.
Thank you.